In this video, we're going to look at solving absolute value equations. So what you want to remember is that the absolute value measures distance from zero. So if I have, say, a number line and I have the point 0 there, -2 and 2 are the same distance away from 0. Okay, so it's kind of important to remember that there's if you're looking for a distance of 2, there's two possible answers. All right, at -2 is 2 places away from 0, and +2 is 2 places away from 0. Right? You can think of it, if you have a little house. Right? If someone's over here and someone's here, just because they're on opposite sides of the house doesn't mean that one has to be closer. All right? It's possible for them to be the same distance away. Let's say 1 mile. Right? So it's important to remember that absolute value measures distance, and it's possible to have multiple solutions. Now, why does that help us? Because in number 1, when they're asking you to find the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is equal to 5, we need to look at this as two different possibilities. Right? If you had a number line, well, what distances are 5 units away from 0? Both -5 and 5 are the same distance. So again, getting to the actual arithmetic here, to solve these, once you have the absolute value isolated, you're going to set up two equations. You're going to say that 2x minus 1 is equal to 5, and 2x minus 1 is equal to -5. So you're going to take the inside piece, and you're going to set it equal to the positive and negative versions of whatever that number on that right side would be. And then you solve these equations as you normally would. So +1, so we get 2x is equal to 6, and then divide by 2. So x is equal to 3. That's one solution. And then again, if we add 1, 2x is equal to -4, divide by 2, and x equals -2. That would be our second solution. So you do want to be careful. You need to set up two equations and then solve each one to get your two solutions. It's always, always, always a good idea to take those numbers and plug them back in to make sure that they work. In number 2, we're looking to do pretty much the same thing. All right, so we're going to take that inside piece, that 3x plus 2, and we're going to create two equations, one where it's equal to 4 and one where it's equal to -4. And then, again, we just solve them. So subtract 2. I'm going to rush through the solving part a little bit because you should know how to do that. So x would equal 2/3. And x would equal -2. All right, so those would be your solutions. Now, what you do need to watch out for is a problem like number 3 or number 4. What's very, very important for these, and absolutely critical, is you cannot solve these until the absolute value is by itself. You need to get that isolated. So anything, in the case of number 3, on the outside needs to be moved over first, and then you can solve the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 to each side. So I get 3 absolute value x plus 2 is equal to 9. Then I'm going to divide by 3. So I have x plus 2, the absolute value of that, is equal to 3. And now I can set up my two equations. But again, it's absolutely critical that you get the absolute value isolated before you do your two equations. If you don't, you're going to get the answers incorrect. So subtract 2, x would be equal to 1. Subtract 2, x would be equal to -5. Please make sure that you isolate the absolute values. Okay, so you must isolate the absolute values before setting up two equations. Okay. One more thing I want to note here is absolute value measures distance. Okay, distance always has to be positive. So if I take a look at problem like number 9, my absolute value is equal to a -3. It's impossible for my absolute value to be equal to a negative distance. So for a problem like this, there's no solution. However, you do want to be careful. Make sure that you isolate the absolute value before you decide whether there is or is not a solution. So if I go down to number 13, although the term absolute value 4 minus z minus 10 is equal to -3, although there's a negative on the right side, when I move this 10 over, my absolute value will be equal to a positive number. So I can solve that one. So you do want to be careful. Make sure you isolate the problem or the absolute value before you solve your equations.